Story 1. In Ireland, the cost of housing has far exceeded the typical income. So many of the better skilled people are moving overseas for better opportunities. A great many critical services, such as schooling and nursing, are suffering for want of labor. The people who might prefer those jobs just can't afford to live near enough to take them. The politicians are generally all trying to subsidize home ownership, which really doesn't address the core issues and, in fact, may make them worse. Story 2. Northern Ireland, people in the United Kingdom in general talk about how the National Health Service, our health service, is now in crisis, that waiting lists are getting too long and wait times in emergency rooms are awful. Well, it has been like that here in Northern Ireland for about 15 years, and our situation is twice as bad as it is in the rest of the United Kingdom. Waiting lists to see specialist consultants are measured in years, not weeks or months. The average person can expect to wait 12 to 16 hours in the emergency room unless they are actively dying. Our mental health services are so underfunded that appointments for people with severe problems are still very hard to get, and anyone with just regular anxiety or depression might as well not bother even asking. General practitioners are so overwhelmed that getting an appointment to speak to your doctor is now a competitive sport. You'll need to call the second the practice opens its phone lines, and usually, they are booked out within 5 minutes. So bad that the private health industry is now also facing long waiting lists. Usually, this is a relief valve. If you can afford it, you can get a procedure done privately and avoid the huge wait. But some specialties are so in demand that you could be waiting many months even if you're paying out of pocket. Story 3. Erdogan. His mere presence basically triggers a chain reaction into multiple serious problems, as nearly every decision he makes is bad for the country and good for his bank account and some votes. Story 4. Living in Finland right now, and the cost of electricity is absolutely crushing US. I had to start keeping a spreadsheet just to track my power usage, and I'm literally scheduling my showers and laundry around off-peak hours. I never thought I'd be timing when to heat up my morning coffee. Story 5. Poland. Cost of housing. The situation is worse than in other European countries, with only Romania probably having similar issues. Story 6. Peru. Corruption is present at every level, even in places that should not have corruption. Religious fanatics are spreading like cancer and inciting chaos. There is no cohesive national focus to deal with rising foreign criminal organizations, and persistent inequality is causing crime. People are just waiting for a leader like Nayib Bukele, but they want a leader to target people they dislike. Personally, for me, pollution is a tremendous problem, and no one wants to talk about it. Story 7. Our president recently approved legislation that will make it easier for the state to expropriate land without compensation, signed off on a law granting the government increased influence over schools policy, and signaled he would press ahead with a yet-to-be-costed national health insurance plan, which nobody wants and we cannot afford. He is ignoring a 10-party coalition, our government of national unity, and has given the country a big, fat middle finger, signaling he'll do whatever he wants. Government of national unity be damned. South Africa. Story 8. Australia here. Shrinkflation. Cost of living crisis. It's strange seeing Americans complain about eggs costing as much as $7. That's on the cheaper side in most places for a dozen. I've seen free range in supermarkets for $10 to $11. Story 9. I can't say this is the biggest, but Canada has crazy high real estate prices. I live in a one-bedroom apartment with a decent salary, yet I can barely afford to do or buy anything. It's insane, really. Story 10. Capitalism and privatization are being slowly introduced into every aspect of society, while the younger population has grown up with these notions and are completely oblivious to what is happening, thinking fighting injustices is radical and being way too scared to take any sort of stand. My country's gaps between the very rich and the regular or poor are widening faster than any other country in Europe, I believe. Debt is beyond normalized at this point. It's considered weird not to take out big loans, even if one absolutely doesn't need to. Basically, we are happily skipping along in America's footsteps in complete denial, even though we can clearly see our future unfolding now, right before our eyes. Story 11. I'm not sure if it's the biggest problem because I'm not into politics all that much. Also, Swedish politics is extremely boring. But it concerns me a lot how people are so open about not liking immigrants to the point where it is straight up discrimination. And this isn't just 12-year-old boys in comment sections. Full-grown men are somehow so upset about immigrants, largely people from the Middle East and Africa, living in Sweden. Not so long ago, people voted for a political party that just happened to be close friends with another political party, Sweden Democrats, that is infamous for being very anti-immigrant, even going so far as to say if they get elected, they will deport a bunch of immigrants, basically Swedish Donald Trump. So, of course, people, including me, have been worried that the Sweden Democrats are going to influence the government in a very negative way. Personally, I'm worried because I am half Tunisian myself and my dad is an immigrant. Story 12. Lack of social cohesion. I am seeing signs of civil fracture and civilians pointing fingers at each other for being the problem. Could we just look at the issue and not the political party? We would actually make progress. What is the problem? A decade of terrible leadership on every level resulting in hyperinflation, corporate control, food insecurity, abysmal birth rates, crime, homelessness, and more. I am Canadian, by the way. Even our healthcare is in dire shape, not to mention immigration. 1/8 of our known population has to be legally deported as of January 1st, 2026. This is just what we can see at the moment, but people truly need to assemble and regain control. Story 13. I would say in Spain, the housing market is going crazy. Foreign-backed far-right movements and propaganda. Financial elites lobbying to degrade the quality of public, free, or affordable services to take over and privatize them to make it more like the style in the United States. Edit after reading the comments. It's easy to say the problem is the Americans and/or the Russians. In my opinion, the global financial elites and oligarchs, along with their competition for resources, are bringing most of the world into a state of unrest. Those kinds of people do not have a motherland. The last time the world was in a similar state of unrest, the quality of politicians and leaders in every geopolitical bloc, United States versus Soviet Union, was better. There were no Trumps. Now it looks like almost every country has its national Trump version gaining more and more power. The last time the general state of unrest in the world evolved into war, there were no nuclear weapons massively stored and ready to bring destruction to the whole planet. I assure you, if there is World War III, none of those like Putin, Trump, or Elon Musk will die, and none of their beloved ones will become irradiated dust. Story 14. The access to and cost of housing in Spain, with a constant rise in purchase and rent prices, makes it very difficult, especially for young people, to get affordable housing. Story 15. Hungary, corrupt Russian puppet government and the things that come with it, for example, stealing every fund or the inflation due to bad economic policies and so on. Story 16. Idiot in government and his voter base blame everyone and everything else. Geert Wilders isn't doing anything to help my nation, but unfortunately, the rest of the government isn't doing much either. Story 17. Live in Australia, and we have a weak government. The weak leadership has affected Australians by making them confused about what to believe and who to trust. The criminals are barely punished and just instantly get bail to commit more offenses because they know they'll go to court and get released the next day. Story 18. The United Kingdom is slowly going bankrupt, and the general population refuses to see or accept it. This allows a political fix by reducing services and benefits to an affordable level, which will exacerbate the coming crisis as a result. Story 19. The biggest problem in my country right now is a silent epidemic. The gulf between our expectations and reality. We scroll through perfect facades on social media, yet internally we're grappling with uncertainty and disconnection. That relentless chase for validation blinds us to real connection, leaving us more isolated than ever. It's a reminder that an engaging post cannot replace an engaging person. We need to start valuing authenticity over artifice. That is the bridge to healing. Story 20. Netherlands. Housing crisis. This intertwines with the nitrogen crisis. We cannot build many new houses because our nitrogen emission is too high for nature to handle, and the people chose protecting farmers, the biggest emitter of nitrogen, over building houses somehow. Story 21. Canadian here. The biggest issue for me currently is the volume of population growth, with seemingly minimal effective investment in housing, infrastructure, and parks to support the growing population. Story 22. Israel is taking more of my people's land. I'm Palestinian. There's even a joke in my family. Brothers will fight over who gets the inherited land. Then Israel comes and takes it. I promise it's funnier in Arabic. Story 23. In Britain, we have mass immigration despite 85% of the population wanting it to stop. Our government is occupied by open-border globalists, and we don't actually have a democracy where the people can decide. Story 24. Israel here. War. Rising prices of everything. The government is full of religious influence, and no one cares. No good public transportation. No public transportation on the weekend at all. Can go on. Story 25. Canada, and our current biggest problem is the United States. But other than that, cost of housing, cost of food, cost of childcare, stagnant wages, slow healthcare system with year-over-year reductions in coverage. Story 26. Canadians who lean left have absolutely lost their mind at Trump's saber rattling. Ask Canada is nothing but enthusiasts talking about the nuclear deterrent, conscription, and arming themselves with 5-round rifles to storm Washington, D.C. and relive the War of 1812. Story 27. As an American, I just want to apologize to the rest of the world for the ignorance, fear, and hatred that some of us have towards the perceived other. I would like to think that some of us realize that we are all human beings just trying to do the best we can to survive and help others. Again, my apologies. Story 28. England, the majority of the country is absolutely in a difficult situation. I'd probably be here all day listing or talking about it. Certainly not helped by right-wing extremists, inspired by more extreme right-wing extremists, which seems to be pushing people to more and more extreme views. Story 29. The biggest problem in any country often isn't one thing, but rather the silence of those who let others do the talking. Removing the voices of the passionate weakens everyone's power. Ironically, the world could use a supportive megaphone amid a symphony of discontent. Story 30. The American president, the man who won the election and is supported by 70 million Americans, wants to annex my country, destroy our healthcare, and steal our water and natural resources. He intends to implement tariffs on our products for reasons so we can be 40 million more serfs in his oligopoly. Yeah. Thanks, America. Story 31. That's extremely easy to answer. Trump, his followers, and the culture of hate they've willfully engendered. They are the biggest threat to America by far and are also becoming a large threat to the rest of the world. What he and they want is antithetical to peaceful human coexistence. Story 32. In Germany, our politics are rather tense. With a Christmas attack and knife attack, Germany is currently trying to issue an overhaul on asylum seekers and border control. And with the whole Elon Musk situation, we've removed him from museum exhibitions. We're all terrified of the far right being elected in the next election, and riots and protests are rising. Story 33. That a convicted, fraudulent rapist is in charge of the most powerful country on earth, and that enough people support his decision to put a Fox News host with no morals as head of the most powerful military in the world. Story 34. It's a combination of two factors. First is major companies buying up all the entry-level homes to rent out at a profit. Secondly, those who build houses don't build smaller, more affordable entry-level homes because it's more profitable to build larger-sized homes since they make far more profit per square foot. Now there are no entry-level homes, and that's a huge barrier to entry for people looking to buy and locks a lot of people out of home ownership entirely. On top of that, a lot of baby boomers wanted to downsize from their two large homes at one point due to reasons like no kids and cost savings, and now we have a problem. Story 35. I live in Austria. There were elections in September or October. There is still no government. The far-right Freedom Party got the most votes, around 30%, but nobody wanted to work with them, so the minority parties were trying to find a way to form a government coalition without the Freedom Party. This inflamed far-right voters because they believed they won and felt excluded. But then those parties couldn't compromise, so the negotiations collapsed. So now, the Freedom Party has been given the job of forming a government, but there is only one party potentially willing to work with them, and negotiations are ongoing. In summary, elections were about 5 months ago, but there still is no government. Story 36. Canada. Donald Trump keeps joking about making us the 51st state, but we know with him it's never a joke. This is a very real threat to our nation. And now he's planning on applying tariffs to Canadian goods, which would seriously hurt our economy. On an unrelated note, despite our Prime Minister generally doing a good job and being well-liked on a global stage, the media has been demonizing him for years now, and people have been consuming it to the point where he was the most hated person in the country. So he recently stepped down, and our government is essentially on pause until they can appoint a new leader of the party. Then they'll probably call an election the second the government is back in session. So we don't really have any leadership at this point to fight back against Trump. It's likely that we're going to elect a conservative government into power, whose leader is a huge dweeb, nicknamed Milhouse because he's basically Milhouse, except if Milhouse was a big Jordan Peterson fan and vowed to end wokeness, and will probably sell us out to Trump the first chance he gets.